see it?
Yeah, that was my genuine reaction when I saw it. Well, hey guys, how do we keep it dirty off-road? And in this video, we're going to go over the ZR2 frame damage you guys saw from the Mint 400. If you haven't seen it so far, it was all over the internet. It was on TFL. It was on the Drive. It was all over based on a post we did. With a picture we got from Josh, JRB Media, who was out there with us at the Mint 400. So in this video, we're going to cover what happened. We're going to go over what we saw on the race course, because we actually saw these trucks hitting the race course and saw them pass a few times. And then we're going to deconstruct it, take a look at what happened to the truck, the damage that happened to it, the statements from Chevy, from General Motors. And then I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on it. Before we dive into what happened, let me just preface this. I do like the ZR2 platform, the ZR2 Colorado platform, though, not the Silverado. We've seen plenty of ZR2s, Colorados, hit the trails with us and keep up with Raptors, and it's a solid platform. I actually considered building up a ZR2 before I found this really cool Gen 1. So I do like what's there, and I do like the updates they've done to the second generation of the ZR2. So before you guys think that I'm just a big old Chevy hater and I only like Ford, and I do love Ford, but Ford's got its issues, and I like all brands, right? I used to be a big Chevy guy before I got into Ford. My first car was a Chevy Camaro. I've owned Silverados back in the Vortec days with the 5.7, never the 5.3, that 5.3 engine I've always hated, and I've had Denali's with the 6.2. So I used to be a really big Chevy guy. I still am with some of the newest stuff, and I love the ZR2. So take a look at these clips here as we take a look at the ZR2s for the first time, both Silverado and all that stuff, to show you guys I'm not just here to bash Chevy. Some of the stuff they're coming out with I do like, and I would definitely drive that new Colorado. A new Colorado is pretty cool looking. What do you want to do? Let's do the Silverado first. I always thought this was silly. The flow tie, right? Because
with the ZL1, I believe they started doing that.
But it's like there's a latch right in the middle of there.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, look. There's a latch. So I don't.
I mean, it's not going to be this huge benefit. It's more of like a gimmick. They didn't have to fill in the logo.
No, I mean, it looks good, but it's gimmicky.
Yeah. It's got some plastic on the hood like the Raptor.
It's got a pretty low hang, though, man. See that?
Yeah.
It's pretty low to the ground.
Bumper is pushed against quite a bit, but yeah, it does hang a lot lower.
So let's take a look at the suspension. See, what are these? These are 30, at least 33s or 31s?
I'm not seeing a size.
Yeah, me neither.
275, 70, 18.
So it's probably 31s.
275, yeah.
You know, suspension-wise, these look almost identical to the ones on the Colorado. They even look the same size. I could be wrong on the size.
I think bigger piston, probably.
You would hope.
I would think, yeah. I mean, it's definitely longer, maybe shaft and all that. But body shaft.
They got like semi-rock sliders. One thing I do like is the interior. The new interior, the Chevy's is finally looking nice, especially after having that Cyclops look forever. Now, one thing that was surprising to me is the back is still leaf sprung. Everybody's already gone to Link, but Chevy's still leaf sprung.
It's not full size, but you know, they kind of left the underpinnings the same.
Yeah, but look at the overhang too. This got a huge overhang.
The factory Silverado bumper right there.
Is it?
I think they did a special off-road one minus this color.
Uh-huh.
So it's still got the hitch. It's still got all that.
What's the dual cameras for, I wonder?
It's part of the 360, I'm guessing, but it's that split tailgate that does the snap and all that.
I like the color.
Yeah, do you like this color?
I wish Ford would bring back that same sandstone color that we used to have.
Yeah.
And I also like the detail they did on the end of the cab, right? They kind of like that fairing.
Probably helps
for aerodynamics.
Like, yeah, aerodynamics and the gas mileage. Here's the actual shock.
Looks like it's got a beefier reservoir.
That, to me, looks like a 2. Inside the body, it looks like a 2. You know, this has at least the Multimatic part of it. But on the Trail Bosses, like, I don't know how I feel about the Rancho stuff, but Multimatic on.
Oh, wait a minute, dude.
The ZR2.
These are
2-inch increase in travel.
But it doesn't say what size they are.
It's 1 inch in the rear. I mean, just look at that. That to me looks about a 2-inch.
It doesn't look like a 2.5, yeah.
Yeah, that looks like a 2. Then
which, considering the weight of that thing, this is not enough. I mean, like, they're making up with the larger reservoir, the dual reservoir setup.
Yeah.
But that's a trip.
So, I mean, but even over the regular kit here, 2 inches and only 1 extra in the back. You know, then you need this leaf spring. I don't know.
They went the Raptor route.
2 inches of lift.
Yeah, but they went the Raptor route. This is like a soft leaf spring, right? Very little there.
I mean, I like the V8 option. It's probably one of the last V8 off-road-ish trucks.
Well, what I think would be cool, dude, is if they did this with the supercharged LT4.
Oh, the aftermarket will definitely do a supercharger for it.
Right. It needs a Raptor suspension.
Yeah.
If they had the Raptor suspension, that would be better.
Like I said, this is roughly the same Silverado underneath with some extra tech, which is great, but yeah, a step in the right direction. That's all I can include.
Let's look at the Colorado, because this one is the one I think is a little bit better, and I think more capable out of the box.
I think just out of the box, I'd want this on a trail over something that, you know, like that big, that can't go like Raptor speeds, for example, you know. They're going to have less capability, maybe have something with a better, tighter package.
No, I do like the new styling. It's way more aggressive. I think the old styling was super conservative.
Yeah.
I kind of like the bull bar setup too, even though it's all plastic. I mean, it's plastic. It's hollowed plastic.
It's like some kind of composite. It feels like metal.
Does it?
It feels like metal. Touch it. It's cold, but it's got this weave behind it because it's hollowed out. It's not.
So it's a composite.
It's not a tube. Yeah, some kind of metal or composite.
Now, I wish they did a better low-profile bumper. I'm wondering if it's because of cooling. The cooling protected? Because that's always been a problem with the Toyotas, right? The Toyota,
Are you talking
the radiator?
New Tundras and stuff?
Yeah, the Tacomas. Oh. The radiator always sits really low in that front end, so it's really vulnerable. I don't know. I think I would rather roll this because it's the same size tire, basically. Right? They look about the same.
This is a 285 7017. So it's got less rim, and it's a bigger ratio. This is actually a 33.
And then suspension-wise, this has the same shocks. It's about a 2-inch with a single reservoir. It doesn't have the dual. So that's what it looks like, man. It looks like the same shock, but a single reservoir rather than the dual. That's what it looks like. That's all they did. It's the same shock, just, you know, added additional dampening. Interior, if you haven't seen it, which we may not be able to get a good shot here, but way better. Way better interior.
It's got sliders. It's on a leaf.
And these sliders have better protection too. They go up a little bit into the body.
A little higher.
And then the shocks are on the outside. Oh, wait a minute. In the back, they have the dual reservoir set up too. But they're piggybacked. And a similar leaf pack design.
Yeah. I think these are beadlock capable wheels too, which is nice.
Yeah. I like the bronze color of the ring too.
It's a nice contrast. I'm kind of indifferent to this bed rack, but I mean, I know for most people that's going to be a benefit.
For me, I like the Marty McFly look, so that's a benefit. I like it.
Okay.
I like the Marty McFly look.
I think maybe if it like ended here, maybe they have the hook all the way back here.
This is more of a European style. Like the Europeans like to go all the way to the back like that. Yeah. But I get it though, because it spreads the load. Now the fact that it's just here and there, if you off-road this seriously, you will break this. You will break the bed.
Like flex it to death or what?
Yeah, and this is something that I've experienced. I've seen a lot of people experience. They all break it. It's something I warned the overlanders about.
Looks pretty good in the bed. I like the ZR2 embossing.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is the more capable rig, man. I would rather drive this. Oh, look at that. This looks a lot like Ford's design, too.
Yeah, off-road use only, but I mean, you get all the hardware.
And it's bigger bolts, too, just like Ford does.
Yeah.
Because one of the problems you always get is you get the really tiny bolts. The tiny bolts always come loose.
So this says these are upgrades. This is a drive shaft. So it says it's more resistant to impacts off-road.
I wonder if the stock one is aluminum.
Maybe. So I don't know if the ZR2 doesn't have that stock.
And these are all lift blocks and everything, and you can update the skid plates, do a recovery kit.
Just base and the same piece. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if that's all standard on the ZR2 or not, but
I like this better, man. I would, and I think the size is better too in a lot of ways.
Power 18.
Now, unfortunately, too, you notice there's only one engine option anymore.
They don't do the diesel anymore?
No, they got rid of it for the new model.
Got it.
Which kind of sucks. But aside from that, see a little life bar up top, I would rock this the way this is. I think this would be fun. This would keep up with Raptors. Yeah, obviously you want to get a little bit height up front, but that's it, man. That would keep up. That'd be a fun rig. Yeah. What's your guys' thoughts? Put it down in the comments. Okay, so now you guys know, you guys saw my thoughts on the Chevy Silverado and the Colorado. Let's take a look at some of the footage of them running on the trails. Now, we first saw the Colorado ZR2 running on the trails, and it was running really slow. Here's my comments. It'll be hard to hear, but here's my comments of what went down there. Look at hate when people say that the ZR2 can race, because that's the ZR2 racing. Look at its speed. Look at its speed compared to the guy behind it. Oh yeah, I can race it. Yeah, I can fucking race that slow too. That's not racing. That's a Sunday Now, my reaction comes to the fact that I've had a lot of guys on my comments talking about racing, right? When's the last time Ford raced and this and that? And at least Chevy's doing it every year and all this other stuff. But is it really racing when you're going that slow? No joke, guys. They were going really, really slow. And if you look closely at that original ZR2 footage, you can actually already see that there's something up with the frame already because that back end is moving a little too much. Now, for context, for the mid-400, there are some requirements. The truck has to have a ton of safety equipment. It has to have a fuel cell. Some of that safety equipment is a full cage. So inside of that truck, it is fully caged. It has harnesses, it has race seats. In the back, it is partially caged because it has a fuel cell and all that stuff. But the frame is stock. I think a lot of the suspension is still stock. Tires are still stock. Exhaust, engine, all that stuff is still stock. You can already see there's quite a bit of movement in the back end of the truck. And even on lap 1, it was already having issues. That back end was moving way too much for a race vehicle. Way too much. It shouldn't be moving at all with the safety requirements that they have on there. And if you look, when we saw the ZR2 going through there later, there was no movement, but it had a full cage. It was done right. The Silverado ZR2 was done right, so it wasn't going to have as many issues, and obviously it made it through fine. But their pace was slow. I mean, looking at the Silverado going through there, the 1600 buggies, you know, those guys that have little to no suspension, there's maybe 2 to 3 inches of suspension travel, we're going twice as fast as the Silverado and the Colorado through that area. Silverado ZR2 racing, yes. Look how fast they are. I think I could have run faster than that. This is racing. Look at these guys. Oh, they're so gonna pass this. That was badass. Completely different racing, much faster. And I think that's one of my biggest contentions with people bringing up the fact that, hey, ZR2 won the mid-400, ZR2 did this, won its class. Did you do some research to see what were the particulars of that win? Because if you look at it, in this particular race, and I'll bring up the results from the actual mid-400 website, we're going to look at the stop production mini class, which is where the ZR2, the Colorado ZR2 went into. It wasn't going that fast. First of all, the one thing that stood out to me that I didn't know, they're only required to do 2 laps. Everybody else does 4 laps, but stock production class only does 2, and the gambler class only does 1. Very slow. I was kind of surprised, right? Especially when you talk about it, it's like, oh, they won their class and they did it in 6 hours and 40 minutes. Well, 6 hours and 39 minutes. So when you look at that, okay, you look at the lap breakdowns. First lap, they did it in 3 hours. Second lap, they did it in 3 hours and 38 minutes. If you average that out, that means that they only average about 30 miles per hour on the course. On top of that, there was only 3 vehicles entered for the whole class. Second vehicle was a Jeep Mojave Gladiator. Yeah, Jeep Gladiator Mojave. It was going just about on par with the ZR2. Mind you, it was more consistent. His first lap, it did it in 3 hours and 21 minutes. Second lap, it did it in 3 hours and 25 minutes. But when you look at the average, it averaged 29.06 miles per hour when the ZR2 was doing 30.07. Very close. And when you look at the suspensions under those trucks, the ZR2 should have smoked the hell out of the Jeep Mojave. If you're driven one, you know what I'm talking about. The Mojave is not as fast, nowhere near as fast, and it doesn't have as much travel as the ZR2. The ZR2 should have run much faster, not only what? ZR2 came in at 6 hours and 39 minutes. The Jeep came in at 6 hours and 46 minutes. Less than 10 minutes. Less than 10 minutes behind. That goes to show you how slow they was going. Now, the mid-400 race is pretty brutal. The Toyota that was entered, mind you, it was an old FJ. We actually had to do a little bit of research to find out what it was. It was an old FJ, like a 60s, 70s FJ, and it did not finish. It did not even record a single lap because the mid-400 is a pretty grueling course. And if you're not careful, you could damage your stuff. When it crossed the line, my genuine reaction was to laugh.
Do you see it? Do you see it? Oh, that was perfection, dude. That was awesome.
You can buff it out. Look at that. The tie downs are holding the freaking thing together.
Yep, he's got a broken rear windshield and everything, man. That is messed up.
My genuine reaction was to laugh. It wasn't to laugh at GM, because again, I'm a fan of GM. It was to laugh at all the guys in my comments that have talked about racing and how GM beats the stock class, and you know, their GM trucks are better than our Raptors, which we all know is total BS. I mean, there's nothing that beats a Raptor. Not even the TRX beats a Raptor. So to me, that's why I laughed. I laughed so hard because of how many guys have made those comments in these videos and talked about all the bullshit about how great their truck is because they want a stock class. And according to GM, the frame did bend. We don't know if it just bent, buckled, or sheared. We know it bent, and it was held together by straps. So you guys see in the pictures there that Josh took. The actual statement from General Motors was, despite having a rear end damage on the pre-production frame, the ZR2 also finished and took first place in its class. The Mid-400s is notorious as one of the most grueling off-road races in the world. Chevy competes in racing to help develop, test, prove durability of its products in conditions far beyond what most customers will experience. Great statement. Highlights the fact that it won its class and all that stuff. No detail about the fact that number 2 came in really close and it was a Jeep Gladiator, but the fact that they only did 2 laps instead of 4 laps that everybody else does. Also, no mention of the fact that if you're a ZR2 owner, you know the ZR2, the first generation, had frame issues. Plenty of pictures online of ZR2 owners with bent frames when they were towing a small rig. You know, a lot of these overlander guys that like to go camping, towing a small overland rig, and their frame buckled. Well, it looks like GM didn't learn from those issues up front, and they had a very embarrassing failure on the trails. You can't feel sorry for a company like that, guys. When they have a failure like this, they have customers that complain about frame issues and they don't do anything to fix it on the second generation. It's totally on them. And let me give you an example of that. Gen 1 Raptors, when they first came out, the first two, I think 2010 to 2012, had frame issues because of the way customers were using them. And they always built the same way as these ZR2 frames bent up. And it just had to do with how people use them and all that stuff. The frame wasn't strong enough. When they saw all that, Ford fixed it, and I think 13 or 14 Raptors saw some reinforcement, but the real change came in the Gen 2. The Gen 2 Raptors saw major frame reinforcement of that back end to make sure that never happened, and it hasn't. Ever since that, you've seen very little frame damage in the back of these trucks. GM didn't listen to their customers, and now they had a very embarrassing public failure with that frame all bent up. And if you look at the clips, the bed bent into the cab, so the cab broke. That caused the glass to break, right? The cab being bent like that caused the glass to break. And from what we heard from some of our followers after we did that post, GM actually took care of it before they put that truck on the trailer. They must have got onto one of the poles and pulled it straight so that it didn't look so awful going down the road. Let's also look at the Silverado ZR2 Times, because I think this is important to look at. The Silverado ZR2, again, they're going to claim as a class winner because it did win its class. It's the full-size class, but what they don't talk about is the fact that there was only 2 vehicles entered for the whole class, just a ZR2 and a Porsche. The Porsche didn't finish. It only did 1 lap. It did not finish the whole race, unfortunately. The Silverado ZR2 was much slower than the Colorado, and it was averaging 26 miles an hour for the whole race, for about 200 miles. It was doing like its first lap, it did it in 3 hours and 9 minutes, while the second lap it took 4 hours and 22 minutes. Not sure if they stopped to help the ZR2 when they had the frame issue. Who knows? But that is a very slow time. Very, very slow time. By comparison, like I was, like I saw in the footage, buggies, that's real racing. Those guys have very little suspension. They were kicking butt. There's kind of the details, guys. I'm a big fan of the new ZR2. I love the styling. I hate the fact that GM didn't listen to their customers and fix the frame issues and reinforce it. The good thing is they say that they learned from these things, so hopefully we'll see a better Colorado ZR2 come out of this. General Motors still doesn't have anything to really battle the Raptors yet. The Silverado ZR2 is not really an off-road Raptor, and I mean, the fact that Rancho shocks are a performance upgrade for the Silverado is pretty embarrassing if you ask me. I mean, in the fact that they consider that a performance upgrade for the Silverado shows you where Chevy's mindset is. The Multimatic shocks, or whatever they are, the DSSG shocks that they have on there, are far better, but they're still too small, right? The 2-inch body shock for a truck that heavy, even with the extra cooling, I personally think it's not enough. And it's still the same it's still the same geometry as the stock truck. They really need to do a Raptor competitor. And I think at the end of the day, I hope that they do. Now, I know the other argument that someone's going to bring up is, well, at least they're out there racing. And yes, you do have a point. I do like the fact that they're out there racing. And I wish Ford and Ram and all those did the same kind of racing, because it'd be great to see all those vehicles out there on the trails racing head to head to really have some proper competition, because right now as it stands, neither of these ZR2s had any real competition. They're very conservative. They're very slow on these tracks, and they just have to finish the race to podium. And to me, that's a totally unearned win. Right? They just have to finish the podium. And even with that frame damage, Mojave was there within 5 minutes of it, right? I mean, it was that close. A Mojave should not be that fast with the suspension the ZR2 has. It'd be great to see them all race. I know Ford used to do it a lot, but they don't do it so much anymore. Ford at least supports race teams, which is really great. You see a lot of different race teams out there, especially at KOH and all that stuff. You don't see GM supporting too many teams, unfortunately. They do put these teams on to get the headlines of, hey, they want them in 400 again with them. But these are completely empty wins. And unless we have all the manufacturers participating, it is a totally empty win. I'm hoping GM learns from this and they make a better truck. I'm hoping GM gives us a proper competitor and we get a supercharged, LT4 Silverado with Raptor style suspension on there. That would be badass and be great to see that. And I would so want to drive something like that. All right, guys, questions, comments below. My rant's over. Let me know your thoughts on what happened there. We'll see you guys on the next one.